The U.S. government gave them a flag and told them it meant safety. Then they sent 700 soldiers to attack the village flying that very flag. Over 230 people were killed, mostly women, mostly children, mostly elders who could not run. And the man who ordered it was celebrated as a hero when he returned home. But this is not just a story about one morning of horror. This is the story of a nation that was promised peace and received massacre. A nation that was promised protection and received betrayal. A nation that lost everything and refused to disappear. The Cheyenne had some of the greatest warriors in Native American history. They had leaders who sacrificed everything for peace. They had ceremonies, traditions, and a way of life that stretched back centuries. America tried to erase all of it. They failed. This is the story of the Cheyenne Nation, and it demands to be heard. Long before European settlers arrived, the Cheyenne were agricultural people living near the Great Lakes region in what is now Minnesota. They grew corn, lived in permanent villages, and built a stable, peaceful society. But history had other plans. Pushed westward by conflict and pressure from other tribes and expanding European settlements, the Cheyenne migrated onto the Great Plains in the 1700s, and there they transformed completely. They acquired horses, they learned to hunt buffalo, they became one of the most skilled and powerful nations on the plains. The Cheyenne called themselves Tsitsistas, meaning the people, and at their peak they were a people to be reckoned with. Skilled warriors, extraordinary horsemen, a deeply spiritual nation with rich ceremonies, complex social structures, and a profound connection to the land. Their society was organized into 10 bands, each with their own territory and leadership, but they were united by shared language, shared ceremonies, and a shared identity. The most sacred of their objects, the medicine arrows, symbolized the spiritual power and unity of the entire Cheyenne Nation. They were divided into 2 main groups, the Northern Cheyenne, who roamed the northern plains of Montana and Wyoming, and the Southern Cheyenne, who lived across Colorado and Kansas. Different territories, same people, same spirit. By the early 1800s, the Cheyenne had established themselves as one of the dominant forces on the Great Plains. Their alliance with the Lakota Sioux and Arapaho made them even more powerful. Together, these 3 nations controlled vast stretches of the northern and central plains and defended their territory fiercely against all comers. The Cheyenne were master traders as well as warriors. Their trade network stretched across hundreds of miles, connecting with tribes from the Rocky Mountains to the Mississippi River. They were diplomats, negotiators, and peacemakers as much as they were fighters. But it was their warrior culture that made them legendary. The Cheyenne had several warrior societies, each with its own traditions, its own ceremonies, and its own role in protecting their people. By the 1850s, the United States was expanding rapidly westward. Settlers were crossing Cheyenne territory in increasing numbers, following the gold rush trails to Colorado and California. The U.S. government signed the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851, recognizing Cheyenne territory across the Central Plains. It was broken almost immediately as settlers flooded the region. In 1861, the U.S. government presented the Cheyenne with a new treaty, the Fort Wise Treaty. It reduced their territory to a small reservation in southeastern Colorado, a fraction of what they had been promised. Many Cheyenne leaders signed under pressure, not fully understanding what they were giving up. Chief Black Kettle, one of the most important Southern Cheyenne leaders, signed the treaty. He believed that cooperation with the U.S. government was the only path to his people's survival. He was wrong, but he never stopped trying. On the night of November 28, 1864, Colonel John Chivington assembled 700 soldiers and marched towards Black Kettle's village at Sand Creek. Black Kettle had done everything right. He had reported to Fort Loyne, he had been told his village was under U.S. government protection, he had been instructed to camp at Sand Creek and wait for further instructions.
Above his lodge flew two flags, an American flag given to him by the U.S. government as a symbol of his peaceful status, and a white flag of truce. At dawn on November 29th, Chivington's forces surrounded the village and opened fire. What followed was not a battle. There were almost no warriors in the village. Most were away hunting. The people at Sand Creek were families, grandmothers, children, pregnant women. Black Kettle stood in front of his lodge and raised his arms, trying to reassure his people that the soldiers would not harm those under the protection of the American flag. He was wrong. In less than an hour, over 230 Cheyenne were dead. Survivors, including Black Kettle himself, fled into the frozen creek bed and ran for their lives. When Chivington's soldiers returned to Denver, they were greeted as heroes. The outrage that followed was immediate and widespread. A congressional investigation condemned the attack in the strongest terms. Military officers who had refused to participate publicly denounced Chivington, but no one was ever punished. No one was ever held accountable. Sand Creek was not an accident. It was not a battle gone wrong. It was a deliberate attack on a peaceful village by men who knew exactly what they were doing. Black Kettle survived Sand Creek. Incredibly, against all odds, he survived. And even after everything he had witnessed, the loss of his people under a flag of American protection, Black Kettle continued to seek peace. He met with U.S. officials, he signed new treaties, he believed stubbornly, heartbreakingly, that peace was still possible. On the night of November 26, 1868, 4 years after Sand Creek, Black Kettle's village was camped on the Washita River in present-day Oklahoma. They were in a designated reservation area. They were at peace. At dawn on November 27th, George Armstrong Custer, the same man who would later be destroyed at Little Bighorn, led the 7th Cavalry in a surprise attack on the sleeping village. The attack was swift and overwhelming. Over 100 Cheyenne were killed. Black Kettle and his wife lost their lives trying to escape. The man who had dedicated his life to peace died on an attack on a village that was supposed to be safe. Custer reported Washita as a great military victory. He was celebrated across America. 8 years later, at Little Bighorn, the Cheyenne fought alongside the Lakota Sioux against Custer's 7th Cavalry. They remembered Washita, and they fought accordingly. After Washita, after Sand Creek, after decades of broken treaties and forced removal, the Cheyenne were confined to reservations. Their children were taken to boarding schools. Their language was forbidden. Their ceremonies were suppressed. But the Cheyenne never disappeared. Today, there are 2 federally recognized Cheyenne nations, the Northern Cheyenne tribe in Montana, who fought for and won their own reservation in their ancestral homeland after an extraordinary 1,500-mile journey of resistance in 1878, known as the Northern Cheyenne Exodus, and the Southern Cheyenne, part of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes in Oklahoma. Their language is being revived. Young Cheyenne are learning the words their grandparents were punished for speaking. The sacred medicine arrows, the most holy objects of the Cheyenne Nation, are still renewed in ceremony. The traditions that connect the living to their ancestors have never been broken. The descendants of Sand Creek survivors still carry their ancestors' stories. The descendants of dog soldiers still carry their ancestors' courage. The descendants of Black Kettle still carry his unbreakable belief that their people deserve to exist, deserve to be heard, deserve to be remembered. They were nearly erased from history, but they are still here. The Cheyenne didn't just fight for survival. They fought for dignity, for justice, for the right to live on the land their ancestors had called home for generations. Sand Creek happened, Washita happened, and they should never be forgotten, because a nation that forgets its darkest moments is doomed to repeat them. If this story moved you, share this video so more people can know the truth about the Cheyenne Nation. Follow the page for more untold stories of Native American history, and tell me in the comments which Native American tribe do you want to see next.